Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about deductive reasoning. So remember we were doing inductive reasoning back in section 2.1. And inductive reasoning is where you make a conclusion based on observations or patterns. So deductive reasoning is going to be the process of reasoning logically and drawing a conclusion from given facts and statements. So I'm just going to say, there we go. Drawing a conclusion from facts and statements. So the law of detachment is given a conditional statement. If the hypothesis is true, then the conclusion is true. So if the hypothesis is true, then the conclusion is true. And how you write that symbolically, so if you remember from last section when we did our conditional statements, it's if P, then Q. So that means that if P, then Q. So that means you can conclude that Q is also true. And that little triangle thing is a symbol for therefore. So if P, then Q, therefore P, or I'm sorry, if P, then Q, P, therefore Q. So it'll make more sense when you see it in context. So our first example here is if Mark saves $30, he can buy a new video game. Mark saves $30. So what can you conclude? Well, because you know that the if P then Q statement is if Mark saves $30, then he can buy a new video game. And then P happens, he saves the $30, so he can buy a video game. So it's basically common sense for this law. Okay, so if a quadrilateral is a rhombus, then it is also a parallelogram. So quadrilateral ABCD is a rhombus, so that means ABCD is a parallelogram. Okay, so let's look at one that's a little bit different. So if you are 18 years old, then you can vote. Olivia is not 18 years old. So based on the law of detachment, there's no conclusions we can draw if it's not P instead of just P. So you would just say no conclusion. Cool, so I will let you try those other two. The other law that we're going to talk about is the law of syllogism. So this allows you to draw a conclusion from two conditional statements in which the conclusion of the first statement is the hypothesis of the second statement. So again, these make a lot more sense once you see it. So if any of you are interested in becoming a lawyer, you're going to be taking a lot of logic classes like this. Okay, so in symbolic form, if P, then Q, if Q, then R, then you can conclude that if P, then R. So we're going to look at these examples and decide if the law of syllogism gives a valid conclusion or not. So looking at that first one, if it is Saturday, then Jake has a baseball tournament. If Jake has a baseball tournament, then he will need to pack his lunch. So we can see that this follows if P, then Q, if Q, then R. So we can conclude if P, then R. So that means we can conclude if it is Saturday, then Jake will need to pack a lunch. Okay, I will let you try 7 on your own. Let's go down to number 9, because that's where it gets a little different. So you can try 7 and 8 on your own. So if it is sunny this weekend, then you will go boating. If it is sunny this weekend, then you will wear shorts. So unfortunately, that one doesn't really work out following the law of syllogism, because the conclusion of the first statement should be the hypothesis of the second statement. So there's no valid conclusion that we can draw from that. Okay, let's look at number 10. If you shop at Target, then you will use your Target red card. If you do not use your Target red card, then you will not get 5% off. So again, that does not follow the law of syllogism. It has to follow it exactly. It doesn't say anything about negating the conclusion from the first statement and using that as the hypothesis of the second statement. So that's a no valid conclusion. And let's look at this last part. If it snows, then school will be canceled. If school is canceled, then students will need to make up a day of school. So this one does follow the correct order. We see the hypothesis of the first statement, the conclusion of the first statement is the hypothesis of the second. So we can say if it snows, then students will need to make up a day of school. Okay, and that's that. So then we have a little bit more practice we're going to do on the next slide. So here's just some more things we're going to look at. So you're going to determine which conclusion follows from the given statement by the law of detachment or the law of syllogism. Remember, if it doesn't exactly follow one of these two patterns, you would say there's no valid conclusion. So let's try some of these. So if I drove over the speed limit, then I will get a ticket. I drove over the speed limit, so I got a ticket. So that would be that first one, the law of detachment. If Amanda goes to the restaurant, then she will order a hamburger. If she orders a hamburger, then she will get fries. So if Amanda goes to the restaurant, then she will get fries. So that would have to be syllogism, because we see that the conclusion of the first statement is the hypothesis of the second. If it snows, then I will wear my rain boots. If it snows, then I will go to school that day. If I don't go to school, then I will wear my snow boots. So that unfortunately does not follow the correct pattern, because the hypothesis of the second statement is the hypothesis of the first statement instead of the conclusion. So no, I guess they want you to write invalid, actually, invalid. If Tina goes to the beach, she will wear sunscreen. Tina goes to the beach, Tina will wear sunscreen. That's detachment. If you get a cold, then you will eat chicken soup. You ate chicken soup, so you have a cold. So that doesn't work, because we cannot go backwards. If they have to give you the hypothesis and then you give the conclusion. So that's invalid. So then I will let you try 6, 7, and 8 on your own and check your answers. And then we are going to take a quick look at number 9. So it says, use the law of syllogism to write 3 conditional statements that can be formed from the following statements. If a quadrilateral is a square, then it has 4 right angles. If a quadrilateral is a rhombus, then its opposite sides are parallel. If a quadrilateral has 4 right angles, then it's a rectangle. If a quadrilateral is a rectangle, then its opposite sides are congruent. If the opposite sides of a quadrilateral are parallel, then it is a parallelogram. So I'm going to focus on statement A, and the conclusion of that statement is that it has 4 right angles. So I also see that here. So I'm going to look at combining lines A and C by law of syllogism. So I could say if a quadrilateral is a square, then it has, then it is a rectangle. Sorry, I was about to read the same statement. Okay, so other things I could do, I could look at B, because it says the opposite sides are parallel, and then this is if the opposite sides are parallel. So I could go from B to E. We won't actually write it out. And let's see if I can find one more thing. So also here in statement C, the conclusion is then it is a rectangle. If it is a rectangle, is statement D. So you could also go from C to D using the law of syllogism. So for answer 2, if I went through and did that, it would be if a quadrilateral is a rhombus, then it is a parallelogram. If I did answer 3, if a quadrilateral has 4 right angles, then its opposite sides are congruent. And that is it for section 2.3. See you next time.